Hey guys, LevelCap here, and today in gaming, DICE are back from vacation. GTA's publisher spent $12 billion on a studio, the Steam Deck may be harder to support than expected, and much more. DICE are officially back to work on Battlefield 2042. The developers went on vacation following the launch of Update 3.1 on December 9th. 2042 has also seen a weekly rotation of modes and challenges while they've been away. Some developers reached out to the community over the break to collect feedback. These posts might hint at what's to come in the game's immediate future. We recently covered the most prominent feedback request from one of EA's community managers who asked what players like or dislike about the weekly challenges. The response to these posts has been very mixed. Social media and Reddit have been flooded with feedback over the break, with players demanding an explanation for the game's missing features and content. And while the community reaction has gotten a bit out of hand despite much of the feedback being justified, it's clear DICE need to communicate about what's in store for the game's near-term support. A roadmap or blog post acknowledging the feedback that outlines how DICE plans to address it would be great to see. We'll probably have to wait at least a few days for major announcements as the devs get back up to speed. In the meantime, DICE will update 2042's known issues list with at least 2 new items this week. The first is a bug that prevents mouse input from going up or down after exiting a vehicle, climbing something, or entering a menu. The other known issue is the bug preventing players from being revived next to walls or specific structures like the pipe stacks on Discarded. In our final bit of Battlefield news, EA Community Manager confirmed on the game's subreddit that the red light, green light free-for-all mode and zombie-style infection mode are both coming as featured experiences in the coming weeks. 2 Angry Gamers originally created the red light, green light mode on Twitch in mid-November. It's inspired by Squid Game, which had just debuted at the time and was taking the internet by storm. As designed by the dynamic stream duo, the mode had some rough elements. Hopefully DICE's implementation is a bit more polished. But I want to hand the conversation over to you guys. Clearly, DICE have a mountain of work ahead of them turning things around for 2042. If they made all the big changes the community is requesting, like reworking or removing specialists to restore the class-oriented design of past titles, do you think that would be enough to win players back? Let us know in the comments. GTA publisher Take-Two acquired mobile studio Zynga for $12.7 billion. This is the single biggest acquisition in gaming since Tencent acquired Clash of Clans developer Supercell for $8.6 billion. Zynga is well known for its Farmville franchise. Over the years, they have amassed one of the largest mobile gaming audiences in the world, with tens of millions of daily players across their titles. Take-Two plans to expand their PC and console franchises to mobile devices, with Zynga leading development in the next 2 years. It sounds like they'll be developing new entries in Take-Two's franchises like GTA, Red Dead, and Borderlands. Mobile gaming has of course exploded over the years, and mobile games are often the biggest money makers even for studios that traditionally focus on console games or PC games. EA, Epic, and Activision all have mobile titles beating their home gaming experiences in revenue and player count. Gaming in general is trending more and more towards live service models based on the success of mobile games. It seems like just a matter of time before Rockstar announces GTA Online Mobile, and it breaks all sorts of franchise records. Speaking of Rockstar, the Red Dead Online community is outraged by the lack of support it's received for the past few months. The last major update was back in July, and it wasn't that big of an update. Rockstar spun Red Dead Online into a standalone experience in December 2020, and while that generated a significant influx of new players, the litany of bugs introduced with subsequent updates and lack of new content has caused the player base to dwindle. The state of Red Dead Online pales in comparison to that of GTA Online support. That game just got a major expansion with new story content and missions. It's unclear if Rockstar plans on revamping Red Dead Online support or not, but based on how viral the Save Red Dead Online hashtag has been over the past few days, it's clear the community has reached a tipping point. 2022 is looking like a record-breaking year for gaming. Steam just flew past 28 million concurrent users, which is 3 million more than this time last year. Sandbox survival shooter Rust just hit 12 million units sold 8 years after its launch, and 2021 was the biggest year in terms of active players. Elden Ring, made by the Dark Souls devs from Software, is currently the most wishlisted game on Steam, and considering that wishlist metrics are one of the best predictors for sales on the platform, that should tell tell you a lot about its potential success. And Forza Horizon 5 just passed a staggering 15 million total players 2 months after launch. Since the pandemic began in early 2020, home media and entertainment has exploded in popularity. It's tough to say if the growth is sustainable in post-pandemic times, but at this point it's impossible to say when that will actually be. Valve's upcoming portable console, the Steam Deck, might be harder to support than they're letting on. According to the developers of Warhammer Vermintide 2, getting an easy anti-cheat running on Linux isn't as simple as flipping a switch. They say that easy anti-cheat comes in 2 flavors. One is based on Epic's online services, and the other is for the other platforms. The Epic Online Services version is basically an opt-in plugin that works automatically with the Steam Deck, but the other version isn't nearly as simple to implement as there's no baked-in support for Proton. It also happens to be the version that most developers use. Proton is the transition layer Valve developed to run Windows titles on Linux. Since the Steam Deck runs Linux, Proton support is required to get your game running unless you're willing to create a version specifically for Linux. The good news is twofold though. Firstly, the Steam Deck is just a mini PC. You can actually install Windows on it and run Windows-only titles natively if you really want to. Secondly, both Valve and Easy Anti-Cheat are working on better support, so likely we'll see an easy way to implement that other version of Easy Anti-Cheat in the near future. Now, of course, not every game will work on Steam Deck at launch, but realistically, we're talking about a few dozen games out of the thousands on Steam that will work on day one. If the Steam Deck proves to be a popular device, there's a good chance that any unsupported games will get compatibility updates one way or another. Upcoming zombie parkour title Dying Light 2 will apparently have 500 hours of content to explore. That doesn't mean it'll take players 500 hours to beat though. Many open world titles have adopted a trend of packing their worlds with random collectibles and other extraneous activities to pad out the endgame experience and give players a reason to visit every inch of the map. Players can actually outright ignore most of these sorts of activities, as was recently clarified in a tweet. Many players were frustrated by the prospect of having to spend 500 hours to get a complete experience. The tweet also clarified that completing the main story and all side quests while also exploring the entire map will take less than 100 hours. It'll take the most dedicated players 500 hours to do 100% of every aspect of the game though. 100 hours or less is still a lot though, and it raises some concerns about the scope and depth of Dying Light 2. Multiple reports over the years have alleged that the game is a victim of feature creep and leadership demanding features from popular titles to be added to Dying Light 2 regardless of whether or not they're a good fit for it. And forcing the game to become a 100 or 500 hour long experience might come at the expense of a more enjoyable and focused 25 to 50 hour-ish game. That's proven to be the case for some players with many popular franchises like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and Fallout. It's also a growing concern with live service games demanding players treat them like a second job to fully level up battle passes and stay on top of limited time event unlocks. Before we get into our final story today, I just wanted to say thanks for tuning in. If any story stood out to you today, please let us know in the comments. We're always looking to hear what games and news interest you to make the show better for everyone. Rainbow Six Siege is getting a new director. The outgoing director was brought on 2 years ago following the game's original leadership moving on to new projects. They oversaw a pretty weird time for the ever-evolving competitive FPS. In the past 2 years, Siege has changed in some pretty dramatic ways. Complex map redesign, gadget-focused metas, sweeping UI changes, and more have all pushed the game to more extreme lengths than anything we've seen since the game originally launched. The change in leadership was obvious and not something that every player was happy about. It's tough to say what the new director will do though. They are being promoted from art director and they've been on the Siege team for the past 4 years. And that wraps it up for today in gaming. As always guys, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap signing off.